Representative Ed Propst, the latest target of the Torres administration's offensive in order to stop the corruption proceedings against Governor Ralph Torres, has responded to Grace Vaiagae's rehash of Irene Hull's 2020 unsubstantiated allegations of sexual misconduct against him. In a 52-minute impromptu speech Mr. Propst made on his Facebook page, aside from rebuking the allegations he has raised, another question. Where is the investigation into Commissioner of Public Safety Robert Guerrero from an actual criminal complaint filed against him on January 19, 2019? A woman who worked under Mr. Guerrero in the Department of Public Safety at the time penned a 25-page detailed account of an August or September 2018 alleged assault on her by the commissioner, which she claimed high-ranking DPS officials witnessed. The woman who wrote in her complaint that Mr. Guerrero grabbed her in his office said she rebuked his advances and was thereafter ostracized from the agency.
They knew right then and there, common sense, that you don't put out press releases during the middle of an investigation. But not one single investigation into the commissioner, because if you read the 25 pages that I did, it's cover-up. Why? Because Internal Affairs reports to the commissioner. Internal Affairs, that's right. It is the only place that I know, any police department, where Internal Affairs is not truly independent, where Internal Affairs bows down. Now, here's the crazy thing, too, is that the people that were involved in this were aware of what was going on. But they covered it up, including Internal Affairs, because they were going to bat for their boss. Now, you want to talk about investigations, Governor? Let's look into this. We can do this. Grace, we'll look into this. I'll help you. And I'll lead you to other complaints that have been brought up. But not only sexual allegations against the commissioner, other allegations that include nepotism, straight up nepotism, and cover-ups, and banning people, and sending people to Homeland Security. Good police officers who were sent to Homeland Security. Why? Why? Because they didn't agree with the commissioner, or they didn't want to do something that the commissioner wanted them to do. Therefore, they're sent to Homeland Security, or whatever. This is how the Republicans operate. They go for the jugular. They go after people. They're trying to go after our JGO chairwoman, Selena. They do things that are unprecedented. A perfect example is with our colleague, Representative Chairman Vicente Camacho, what they have done to him.
According to her document, the complaint was filed with the Office of the Governor of the CNMI and with the Office of the Attorney General. Kandit, which did not start reporting on issues in the CNMI until November 2019, received a copy of the complaint in January 2020, and on January 13, 2020, reported that neither Mr. Torres nor Attorney General Edward Manabusan did anything about the matter. Former DPS Commissioner James De Leon Guerrero and Delbert Pua attempted to investigate the complaint, but the governor's office failed to look into it. She even complained to the Civil Service Commission Office of Personnel Management. Neither office moved her complaint forward, and during the course of the so-called investigation, DPS officials retaliated against her several times, according to Kandit archives. Ms. Vaiagae is the vanquished Republican candidate for the Precinct 3 special election, who lost by a landslide to Democrat Representative sorry, that picture, Karina McCoy, for a seat in the CNMI House of Representatives. She was backed heavily by Torres and his cronies. In a November 10 letter to Speaker Edmund Villagomez, she has raised the same allegations Ms. Hull raised against Propst in the summer of 2020 in the lead-up to the general election, which Mr. Propst won easily without campaigning. The two Republican Torres cronies accused Propst of engaging in sexual relations with college students 2 decades ago. Ms. Vaiagae has been aggressively campaigning to lure women to make accusations against Propst after she filed her complaint with the House Speaker. Now, I'm sure you want to hear, and our audience wants to hear this complaint. This
Yeah.
25-page letter that really has gone nowhere in the annals of justice in the Commonwealth. And it's a sad thing. This woman even handwrote it. 25 pages of detailed accusations against the commissioner. This was done at 6:40 p.m. on January 19, 2019. Of course, we've redacted all of the information that would identify who she is as the victim. She says, I am, blah, blah, a resident of blah, blah, Saipan, Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. I'm currently employed as a blank with the Bureau of Motor Vehicles of the Department of Public Safety for the past 2 years. Sometime around August or September 2018, in the late morning hours, say around 11 a.m., I was washing the rice that Bureau of Motor Vehicles Director Juana C. Leon Guerrero had told me to make for our lunch that afternoon when Johnny Guerrero, the commissioner's son, opened the back door of the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, looked at me, and then yelled, blank, why are you looking at people's time cards? I then looked at him and said, Johnny, I wasn't looking at other people's time cards. When he replied, just wait, I'm going to tell my dad, Commissioner Guerrero. I then began to follow him from behind and said to him again, I wasn't looking at people's time cards. Johnny kept walking away and said to me, no, 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 no. Where it was at this point that my supervisor, Edgar Pangilinan, approached us and told us to stop. About a week and a half later, I received a termination letter from Johnny's dad, Commissioner Robert Guerrero, and then on the same day, he left the commissioner off island on official business. The termination letter was delivered to me by Internal Affairs Investigator Olimpio Munya and accompanied by Internal Affairs Investigator Alexander Sakisat. I then asked the both of them, why am I being served with a termination letter when the justification in the letter is not true? When Olimpio responded, that's the commissioner's call, and should you have any questions, you should speak to your supervisor. Alex and Olimpio then left, and I went to look for my supervisor, Edgar Pangilinan. I found Edgar at his office, and I instead asked him, what happened, Edgar? Why did you say those things about my performance when you know it's not true? Edgar then replied, I'm sorry, it's not me. Somebody told me to do it. I really felt bullied at that point. I was confused and angry at the same time and just walked away to my office and cried. While I was at the registration section, Edgar got up from his chair and walked out. I then later got up and walked out to the driver's license section to time out because it was almost 4:30 p.m. already. As soon as I opened the door to the driver's license section, my coworker John Ariola approached me and said, wait, because Edgar walked to DPS Central to talk about you. I replied, about me? What's that about? And he said, they're going to have a chat about you. And as John was saying this, I began walking towards my car and then left. About 10 minutes later, another coworker, Naomi Pangilinan, called me and said to me on my cell phone, where are you at? I said, why? And she replied, me and Edgar just came from Director K. Enos's office. Edgar was trying to help you, he told Director K not to proceed with the termination transaction, but Director K said to Edgar that she couldn't do anything about the termination because it's the commissioner's call and he left off island. Naomi then said, we're trying to help you. We all are. I just said to her, I'm driving. I need to call you guys back. That same day at around 5 p.m., I decided to contact the CNMI Office of Personnel Management. For some reason, the phone was answered and I began telling them about what had happened to me. I was then referred to the executive assistant of the Civil Service Commission by the name of Therese. I don't know her last name, and she began taking my complaint. Therese advised me to see the commissioner first and speak to him in order to resolve the issue. Because of her advice, I continued to come to work in order to wait for the commissioner to return from his trip so we could discuss my termination. While Commissioner Guerrero was off island, I called every day to his office and spoke to Officer Patrick Ariola to set an appointment to see him. When Commissioner Guerrero returned about a week after he left, I called his office every day to follow up on the status of my request to see him. Finally, about a week after Commissioner Guerrero arrived from his off-island trip and me calling Officer Patrick Ariola to follow up again, he finally told me that the commissioner would be available that same afternoon to see me at around 2 p.m. At around 2 p.m., I went to Commissioner Guerrero's office located at the northern end of the two-story building. As soon as I entered his office's reception area, he looked out through the open door to his office, pointed at me, and said, "Come in." I then walked in and saw Glenn Robigo sitting on a chair inside his office. I sat quite a distance from him because I thought that I needed to have space from him in order to be professional. Commissioner Guerrero, however, said to me, "Come sit near me," and signaled me to sit at a chair that was right next to where he was seated. I then got up and sat next to him. Commissioner Guerrero then asked, "What do you want to see me for?" I replied, "It's in regards to my termination letter." He then asked, "What's going on?" I said, "Is this about me and Johnny's argument?" Because Edgar, when he just cut me off and signaled me to stop and said, "Forget about Edgar. Forget about Johnny. You're going to be at my Capitol Hill office. I'm going to transfer you there." I then told him I don't want to be transferred there because I'm already familiar with my job there, referring to the BMV. When he said, "I'm going to move you away from these people. I'm going to transfer you to Capitol Hill. You still want to be employed here, right?" And I said, "Yes." When he responded, "Tomorrow you're effectively transferred to Capitol Hill." I then got up from my chair and said, "Okay." As I was getting up, when to my surprise, he leaned toward me as if he wanted to kiss me and touched my right butt. When he did this, I looked at Glenn, but he was staring down at his cell phone. I continued to stare at him as I began towards the exit door. Glenn was just looking at his cell phone screen the entire time. I was very uncomfortable and shocked about what happened. When Commissioner Guerrero touched the right portion of my butt, I felt a grip from his left hand from the squeeze he made. Commissioner Guerrero followed me to the door to his office and said, "We'll see you tomorrow." I reported to his Capitol Hill office as he instructed me. I was there alone most of the time, but did almost nothing but to answer the telephone or copy documents. I would also go in and out of the office to coordinate for the Haunted House program. Whenever I am at DPS Central to meet as part of the Haunted House coordination activities and I get a chance to see Commissioner Guerrero, I asked him to transfer me back to BMV, but each time he rejected my request. At some time after Halloween Day 2018, I asked Olimpio Muña, whom I assigned to work together with at the Capitol Hill office, to help me convince the commissioner to transfer me back to Capitol Hill. Olimpio agreed to help me, and he persuaded Commissioner Guerrero to do so. By that Monday, at some time after Halloween, I reported back to BMV after Olimpio had texted me over the weekend that Commissioner Guerrero had agreed to have me report back to BMV. The next time I met Commissioner Guerrero was during an after-lunch Thanksgiving party held at the Aquarius beachside for the Department of Public Safety. While at the party, Commissioner Guerrero waved at me to come to him because I was getting ready to leave the party. I walked towards him where he was sitting with Officer Danny Joab and a couple of other police officers. Commissioner Guerrero then, while seated, placed his hand around my neck and pulled me toward his face. He then whispered in my left ear, "How are you?" I said, "I'm okay. Everything is okay." He then responded by shaking his head and saying, "Tisk, tisk. Be careful what you wish for." I said, "What?" He repeated, "I said, be careful what you wish for. Happy Thanksgiving and enjoy your Thanksgiving." I then began to walk away from him, and as I turned back to look at him, he said again, "Be careful what you wish for." I then left with Naomi Pangilinan, who witnessed the whole event. At some time in December 2018, at around 10 a.m., my supervisor, Edgar Pangilinan, called me into the BMV director's office so that I could be evaluated for my job performance. As he presented my evaluation report, I noticed that I was once again rated unsatisfactory on all categories. I asked Edgar, "This is the same thing as before." Edgar replied, "Director Juana told me to do it because it's coming from the commissioner." I met with Commissioner Guerrero shortly after this encounter at his office, but do not remember the exact date. I confronted him about my evaluation by telling him my evaluation was rated the same as before. He then just laughed at me and said, "Remember what I said before. Be careful what you wish for, right? You didn't listen. Blank, you didn't listen. Just trash the paper," referring to the evaluation report. Commissioner Guerrero then told me, "Just go back to BMV and forget about the evaluation." I then explained to him that I didn't want to go back there because that my peace is being disturbed. He then asked me, "Do you want to go back to Internal Affairs? I said, no, I don't want to, because at Internal Affairs, because I really didn't want to be part of it at any place where I'd be close to the commissioner. He then asked me, where do you want to go? And I said, I just don't want to be at Bureau of Motor Vehicles. Commissioner Guerrero then told me, go back to Motor Vehicles, I'll transfer you out to Highway Safety. As soon as he did this, I walked quickly toward the door to exit out of fear that he will try to make physical contact at me again. When he too walked quickly toward me, wrapped his left hand around my waist from behind with his front body portion making contact with the back portion of my body. He then leaned toward my face with an attempt to kiss me on my lips, but I turned and he ended up kissing my right cheek. As he kissed my right cheek, he made a moaning sound and said, I then pushed him away with my right elbow when he gave me a really angry look. Somebody walked in at around this time, so he moved away from me and tried to fix his posture, and then he said to me, just go back to Motor Vehicles, and then he slammed the door. I then walked back to BMV, and Commissioner Guerrero had told me to when Commissioner Guerrero called Director Juana C. Leon Guerrero. Soon after, I saw Director Juana C. Leon Guerrero and Edgar Pangilinan walk over to the Commissioner's office. A short time later, they both returned, and they said to me to forget about the evaluation and that everything is okay. I then encountered problems getting paid. I brought the matter to the attention of Miss Esther de los Reyes at the Human Resources Unit. I told her that I wasn't getting paid for about a month and that Loida from the Department of Finance had said that my employment with the system had expired. She said that she will get back to me as soon as possible, but she never did. About 2 days later, BMV Director Juana Leon Guerrero called me and delivered or gave my notice of personnel action, making me a full-time civil service employee. As Director Leon Guerrero gave me my personnel action, she said, congratulations, you're now a civil service. Continue doing the good work here in the department, and then I left her office. The next evening, Valentine's Day, Commissioner Guerrero texted and said that I owed him and that it's time for him to collect. I played along with him to see what his intentions were and what he meant by saying time to collect. When he finally indicated that he wanted to go for a drive, I felt that he just wanted to have me provide sexual favors to him. During our text conversations, he set the time for us to meet behind BMV the next day at 11 a.m. He came the next day, but I didn't get out of the BMV office. I never did, so he left. About 3 months later, Commissioner Guerrero reassigned me to the Highway Safety Office. At some time in September 2018, I was checking our inbox by Commissioner Guerrero's new office when he saw me and called me into his office. I sat on a chair across his desk. He then got up from his chair and sat on another chair next to me. He then placed his left hand on my lap and asked, have you seen Edgar? I said, yes, a few times. He then asked, do you know if he's onto something, if he's going to do something stupid? And I said, no. I don't know. I don't know anything. He then said, the word around is that he's trying to file a complaint against me. I said, I don't know anything. He then said, okay. So I got up and left his office. This past Friday at around 7 a.m., I was in front of the Highway Safety Office on my phone talking to a mechanic from Joe 10 Motors following up on my car, which was being repaired, when the commissioner pulled his car in and got out. He then said, come over. So I went to him. He asked, what's going on? I told him that it's my evaluation. So he asked me if I've been talking to Edgar, and I told him no. Commissioner Guerrero then told me that he will transfer me back to Motor Vehicles, but that I cannot be transferred anywhere where Edgar and Naomi Pangilinan are at. At around 10 a.m. that same morning, I was confronted by Internal Affairs Investigator Alex Sakusat and was told they received a phone call this morning that somebody filed a complaint against the commissioner, and it was referred to the AG's office. I told him that I didn't know anything about it. Alex then said, if you know anything about it, you better speak up. I just said I didn't know anything, so he left. About 30 minutes later, Alex came into Marguerite Camacho's office, my supervisor. He stayed in there for about 30 minutes. The two of them met. Marguerite then left and returned about an hour and a half later. She called me into her office and presented me 2 evaluation reports against me. Both were rated unsatisfactory. She told me, this is your evaluation. I redid it. This is now from me and Juana. I then asked her, why am I signing Juana's evaluation when her evaluation was supposed to be from last year? She just repeated, this is your evaluation. This is from me and Juana, and if you don't agree, just sign where it says disagree, and it's up to the commissioner if he wants to continue to employ you. I signed where it said disagree and gave it to her. I have worked in other places but have never encountered any of the incidents I faced while working at the Department of Public Safety. I really felt intimidated, harassed, and bullied by Commissioner Guerrero at the Department of Public Safety. I am officially going on the record that everything I had stated in this statement is true. I declare under the penalty of perjury that this statement is true and correct to the best of my knowledge, recollection, ability, and belief. End of statement. Ain't that something? This criminal complaint was filed with the governor's office and with the office of the attorney general of the CNMI. 25 pages of very detailed recollection by this woman, and nothing was ever done about it. And Grace Pitu Sablan Vaiagae wants to ignore this whole thing against Commissioner Guerrero, her old boss, and go after unsubstantiated claims against Ed Propst, and using her fake I'm with God BS in her attempts to lure women to make false allegations against Ed Propst based on absolutely nothing, when there is an entire criminal complaint
Against Robert Guerrero.
Unbelievable. Well, when we come back, Johnny Rosario has our top story of the night. Please stay with us.